Okay, hopefully that's a little bit better. I'll try to talk louder.
Next to you, so
You're not the best. You're not the best tester for this. All right. Okay, great. Thank you for coming. This is the first session we're having today, and I'm going to talk about my favorite subject, which is the use of data and analytics to better inform hypotheses that you can form to test things on your website to improve your conversions. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm a digital marketing strategist here at American Eagle, Google Analytics certified, Optimizely platform certified. Optimizely is a split testing platform we'll talk about. My background is actually not in marketing. I have degrees in physics, mathematics, so I like to use data to make better informed decisions. And I've been doing this for 25 years now. So a lot of years of testing and trying things and using different platforms. And I think I finally figured it out. So I'm here to share some ideas with you today. Okay. So before we begin, I just want to make sure when you talk about conversion rate optimization, the real sort of foundation of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to show different variations of an important page on your site to different people. And we measure the behavior and the outcomes of those different variations to see which one produces the most revenue or the most form signups, whatever the goal is for that particular page. So you see that in this example here, this would be called an ABC split test. So we have the control page you see in green, which is the original page on your website, and we place against that, in this case, in this example, two variations, variation A, variation B. So these variations might be, changes in a call to action. So you've got a certain page that you want to test. You feel like you can improve this page. And so it's got one call to action. You can actually test two different calls to action. And let's say the goal of this page, it's a form conversion page. So you want somebody to fill out a form and hit the download now button. So we can actually measure, we actually split the traffic a third, and a third. And we measure either which of the two variations win or if the original ends up winning. So by conducting experiments and tests like this, you can continuously evolve and improve your site. So as long as you're getting a decent amount of traffic, I guarantee, I promise, this is your biggest opportunity to make more money or to increase your lead generation. I've seen it work over and over and over again. I've seen it working across all different industries. So we're going to talk about, how do you go about sort of thinking about this entire methodology? How do you start your testing? We're not going to go into the specifics of how to set up a test, but I'm going to talk about how you use data and how you set up a testing document and how you perhaps select a testing platform. I've got some recommendations for you. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to start with website objectives, goals, and key performance indicators. That forms a solid foundation for your testing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to use data to uncover and prioritize opportunities for improvement. I got some fabulous tools to recommend to you that you can try. Creating a detailed testing document, selecting a platform, and then running your tests, measuring the results, and implementing the winners, and then doing it over and over. This is an iterative process, right? So just to give you an idea, if you're a company, you got a decent amount of traffic to your site, the goal is to try to run 500 tests a year. So we're talking about a lot of tests, and tests running concurrently, not sequentially. You're running multiple tests on your site at the same time. Maybe you've got a test on your product detail page, a test on your checkout process, a test on your home page running at the same time. So the first step, and my recommendation here, is to really think about why your site exists and to really plan this out, really set the proper foundation. I recommend no more than 3 to 5 objectives, and these objectives should be very broad. As you can see here, they're not specific at all. In this particular example, the company wants to improve their overall acquisition, meaning different sources of traffic to their site. They want to improve their lead gen. They obviously want to improve conversion rates and revenue, and they want to improve visitor satisfaction. Very simple, very direct, very easy to summarize in an Excel spreadsheet. So once you've got your website objectives, think about what specific goals you can tie to those objectives. And it's possible to tie more than one goal to a single objective. In the case of improving conversion rates and revenue, we've got 3 goals tied to that objective. Improve conversion rate, improve average order value, and lower the checkout abandonment. If we achieve any of those 3 goals, we're improving revenue for the company. Okay, the next step after you've thought about tying goals to your objectives is to really think about what is the primary key performance indicator for each of the goals that you've selected, right? So in the case of improving your conversion rate, it's going to be the actual conversion rate percentage that can be measured in your web analytics tool. Improve average order value, again, that's something that's web revenue is one key performance indicator. Another one might be the actual average order value, which again can be obtained from your web analytics tool. And then the checkout abandonment rate is obviously the key performance indicator to lower your checkout abandonment. So again, really think about, first of all, KPI needs to be very easy to measure. If you're having difficulty measuring it, it's probably not a good KPI. And if you can't directly tie it to either revenue, cost savings, or customer satisfaction, then reevaluate if that's really the best key performance indicator for that goal. And the last step here is to really define your key performance indicator targets. So what are you trying to hit with these targets, right? So again, my recommendation here is to set a baseline with your web analytics tool. Look historically, maybe over the past 12 months. Set a baseline and then maybe go 10% or whatever makes sense for your business above that. And set that as your KPI target. And so each month, as you're working your marketing strategies, really come back to these KPIs and measure them on a monthly basis and see if you're making improvements in them. So this is a good general foundation that you should do no matter what, but it really does help set you up for a successful testing program in the future. All right, so step 2 is using data to uncover opportunities. So my recommendation here is to pick at least one quantitative tool and one qualitative tool. So an example of a quantitative tool would be Google Analytics, right? So Google Analytics, if you've gone in there, lots of numbers, right? It tells you what people are doing on your site, but it's not telling you why they're doing it. So you have to make interpretations in the data, and sometimes those interpretations are wrong. So you have to be careful. It's a good source of data, but it's not a complete source of data. An example of a qualitative source of data would be an exit survey or a page level survey where we're asking customers, was there anything keeping you from downloading this free guide today, and collecting that information. When you have qualitative data coming in and you sort of dovetail it with your quantitative data, you really get a 360-degree picture of where the issues and sticking points are on your site. So I'm going to give you some examples and recommendations on some of my favorite tools that I've seen work over and over again. And you can actually start using some of these right away when you get back to the office. First one is Google Analytics. I think everybody has Google Analytics on their website. And so the example I've got here, this is the page report in Google Analytics. This is actual data, so I had to block out the URLs, but this is the column where you see the actual URLs, the pages in your site. And what we're seeing here is first of all, we're looking at the average bounce rate for the site overall, and then we're looking at the bounce rates for the individual pages, right? So bounce rate, somebody comes to a specific page in your site, they leave without clicking on anything. That's called a bounce. So high bounce rates are bad, low bounce rates are good. So when you're testing and trying to improve pages, bounce rate is a good metric to measure to see if you're making improvements. So the reason I love this report so much is that it helps you identify pages that are getting a lot of traffic, but also have a high bounce rate. So you can take your top 10 pages, high traffic pages that also have high bounce rates, and really focus on trying to improve those 10 pages. This is a great report. If you're a retail site and you have thousands of pages on your site, the question is, where should I start testing? This is a great way to sort of identify high value pages. Page level surveys. My favorite tool is Qualaroo. So this is you probably have seen this on sites that you've been to. It's a little pop-up that opens up in the corner of the page, and it can ask specific information on that page, and you can collect that information. And now you've got some real data to start forming a hypothesis of how you might want to improve the page. This can also be set up as an exit survey on your site, where they come to your site, they visit maybe 4 or 5 pages, and then when it looks like they're about to leave the site, it pops up and asks 3 simple questions. Why did you come today? Were you able to complete the goal of your visit? And if not, why? So using it as an exit survey allows you to measure what's called task completion rate. The percentage of visitors that came to your site that were able to complete the goal of their visit. Doesn't matter if the goal was to just find information on a product, to check a price, to make a purchase, to sign up for a newsletter. Whatever their goal was, were they able to complete it or were they not able to complete it? And if not, why? So you start collecting that information, you start getting really good ideas of where you can start making improvements on your site. Another tool that I like is heat maps. So if you've ever used these, they'll show you where people are clicking and where their attention is on a particular page. So here you've got an example of a university here, and you can see that there's a lot of activity down here, right? And not much activity up here. So if I saw this kind of data, I'd say, let's run a split test and let's find out, let's move these elements that have a lot of activity, let's move them higher up on the page and see if that increases engagement. There's a very simple tool that you can use to help you come up with testing ideas. Fingui, Crazy Egg, ClickTail, Hotjar, these are all third-party tools that you can sign up for. They're relatively inexpensive, and you can start collecting this data right away. Get some good insights. Another one of my favorite tools is usertesting.com. This allows you to set up actual user tests with a whole network of professional testers. So they'll come to your site. You will define maybe 6, 7, 8 tasks that you'd like to watch them perform. And typically the way I set it up, I set up 5 tests for desktop and 5 tests for mobile. So I want to see the difference. I asked them to do the same things on the desktop and the mobile, and I see where the difficulties are. So you can actually, with usertesting.com, I think it runs about $500 for 10 tests. You can get these set up in the morning and have all your results back the same day. It's very fast. Videos, typically, you'll get a video link, and the tester actually talks their way through the task. So you get a video to watch them, and you get to hear where they're having difficulties. The videos last about 20 minutes. So if you do 10, it's a lot of watching time. So make some popcorn and relax. But you get a lot of great insights. Every time I've used this, we've gotten some fantastic insights that have helped to better inform our testing program. And this last bullet point, you can even test your competitor sites. So you can see where your competitors are having difficulty and may be able to leverage some insight on that. 5-second test, I love this one. This is a great one. So the idea here is that, for example, your home page, you've got about 5 seconds to get your point across. Otherwise, it could be gone. So what this does is this will flash up any page on your site that you're wanting to test. It flashes it for 5 seconds, and then it disappears from the screen, and the tester has to answer a series of questions. What does this company do? What was the call to action? What was the important message on this page? So you can find out if your important landing pages are getting the point across by setting up a 5-second test. This can give you insight and ideas that you can split test. So before we move on to the next step, I'll just say that there's no single source of truth. All these tools deliver one single data point. And as long as you're using at least one qualitative, one quantitative tool, you bring these data points together and you'll start really better understanding the problems and issues your customers are having on your site. So step 3 in thinking about a conversion optimization methodology is creating a detailed testing document. So here's an example. Here's a partial view of a testing document. So when you start to set these up, just use Excel. Nothing more sophisticated is required than Excel. Each row is a unique test, and the different columns are different descriptions about that particular test. So what do you put in these columns? I've got 12 suggestions for what you should put in each of those columns. The first one is the test description. So describe what you're trying to achieve. You see, if we go back to this example, this first one here, software demo visibility. So, give a description of what you're trying to do. The second thing is the hypothesis. Number 2, the hypothesis. So be very specific. What do you want to change on the page, and what do you think is going to happen when you make that change? So in this example, change the button text from submit to download now. The expectation is that more people are going to click that button and actually get the download. Number 3 is describe the page to be tested. Provide a direct link to the page. And if you go back to our example, you can see that's the 3rd, 4th column there, pages, sections to be tested. Number 4 is devices. So are you going to run this test on a desktop, on a phone, a tablet, or on everything? Number 5 is targeting. So is the test only going to take place for people who come in from California? Or do you just want to test new visitors, just test returning visitors? So these testing platforms allow you to be very specific in your targeting. So you might have general tests that you want to include everybody, but just know that you can get very, very specific. If you've got a particular type of content site and you want to show a homepage banner that's different for people visiting from California as opposed to people in New York, you can do that. And if you find out that segmenting that way increases click engagement, that starts to better inform sort of a personalization strategy that you can use, that you can utilize in the future. Number 6 is traffic allocation. So do you want to include everybody that comes to that page in the experiment or just a portion? So where this comes in is if you're testing something that's highly critical and you're a little bit concerned that it might lower conversion rate instead of increasing conversion rate, you can actually dial down the number of people that are included in the experiment until you start seeing initial results. And then once you feel comfortable, you can actually slide it back up and include more people in the test. Number 7 and number 8, impact to business, difficulty of execution. So I would just rank a particular test. If you think it's going to have a high impact to the business, give it a 5. Low impact is 1. Difficulty of execution, 5 is high, 1 is low. So as you get more and more tests, and you can imagine if you've got a spreadsheet and you've built out 50, 60 tests, now you can sort to prioritize your tests. You want to start with tests that have the potential to have a high impact to your business but are easy to execute. Start with those first and then work down. And then number 10, 11, you want to come back to this spreadsheet after you perform your test and log your test results. So this is really an optimization roadmap that you're creating. And it's kind of a living document that continues to evolve. So here's an example. This is an actual test that was run by Electronic Arts. If you're familiar, they have a game called SimCity. And so in thinking about setting up their test document, their test description was they wanted to maximize the number of pre-orders for this game. The hypothesis was if they just move the call to action button higher up on the page, they would get more conversions. So here you see the original page here. And this is the variation they produced. Now, there's no different. The only thing they did was they took out this pre-order banner. And the pre-order banner is giving them a $20 incentive on their next purchase. So it was kind of risky to take this off because it could have actually lower conversions, right? But this is the test they set up. This was their hypothesis. If the Buy Now button was higher up on the page, it would increase conversions. So the other things in the testing document that they had to document was the devices. So they ran this on desktop, tablet, and mobile. Targeting, they only wanted visitors in the US. So they set that up so that nobody outside the US was included in this particular experiment. And because this was a test that had the potential to actually lower conversion rate, they only included 50% of the traffic to the page in the experiment. Impact to business, they felt this could have a high impact to their business. Difficulty of execution, very simple. They just removed the banner, right? And they've got their variation. And the goal of the test was clicking the Buy Now button. So a very simple split test. So here are the test results. The original had a 5.8% conversion. The test variation without the banner, without the promo banner, actually had a 10.2% conversion. So surprise, I would not have expected this to happen, right? But this is the whole point of split testing. You will be very surprised once you start implementing tests because you have an idea of how you might want to improve your website, but you're going to find things that you test that you don't expect to work really can work quite well. So always test. Always test it first. Okay. So let's talk about how do you actually do these tests? What platforms do you use? My personal favorite platform is Optimizely. Anybody heard of Optimizely? Anybody using it? Good. Excellent. It's a great platform. It's been around, I think, the longest. It's got advanced segmentation features. They have fabulous customer service. If you have less than 50,000 unique visitors that you want to run through tests in a particular 30-day period, you can sign up and start testing right away. It's free. Anything over that, you got to call and they'll give you a quote. Optimizely is actually a partner of ours. I use this platform with Dale Carnegie. We're using it with WeatherTech. We're using it with a few others. So if you want information, you can either sign up for free at the Optimizely site or you can work with us if you have a larger testing need. Recommendation number 2 is Visual Website Optimizer. It's very, very similar to Optimizely. The only issues I have found is that the advanced segmentation features aren't quite as robust. And I found that customer service isn't as good. And I think probably the reason for that is I think they're based out of the US. So there's a time difference. So I have found that getting support has been sometimes problematic. But otherwise, it's very, very similar to Optimizely. And then recommendation number 3, if you are a business that really is looking to improve your forms, your lead forms, Unbounce is a fabulous tool for that. So they've got templates that you can start with and modify. You can set up your split testing. It's a fantastic tool, and it's pretty inexpensive as well. Okay. All right, so here's an example. Before we go on to the next step here, I want to show you the power of incremental increases in conversion rate. Right. So this top row is data from an actual client. It's kind of a crazy example, right? Because not everybody's getting 19 million sessions per year, but this client is. And not everybody's getting a 5.63% conversion rate. This client is. It's amazing, amazing company. Average order value, $193. So you see what their revenue was in 2014. Not bad, huh? Pretty good. So if they were able to increase their conversion rate from 5.63 to just 5.75, very small increase in conversion rate. For them, because they get so many visitors, that's over $4 million of incremental revenue a year. So it's pretty amazing. You don't have to have large increases in your aggregate conversion rate to really affect your revenue. So the last step is really to measure results and implement the winner. So here's an example of the Optimizely back-end statistical engine. So you don't have to have a degree in math to use these platforms. All the statistical analysis is done for you. And the confidence levels are measured, chance to beat baseline, it's all measured. So you can see this is an actual test that I ran for a company, and you can see in this particular test, it was a form conversion. So they wanted to get more people to complete the form. So the original had a 38.59% conversion rate. Variation 1 had a 44%, and variation 2 had a 52%. So this was a test that I set up in 20 minutes. We ran it, took 2 weeks to run, and they saw a 36% increase in their form conversions. So again, shows you the power of split testing. So this also this chance to beat baseline, it's 98%. That means that there's only a 2% chance that the improvement was due to random fluctuations. So you can be pretty confident that you can implement either one of these as a winner for the test. So these are great, and a lot of times what I see is that people stop these tests too soon because they think they've got a clear winner. And what can happen over the course of a 30-day span is that one variation looks like it's the clear winner, but over time it starts to drop and another one will beat it. So if you stop too soon, and these platforms will tell you when it's okay to stop, but if you think, oh no, I can stop, I don't have to let it run another week, you could be making a mistake, because I have seen weird things happen because you don't have enough statistical data to really clarify a winner in the early stages of testing. So let the platform tell you when it's okay to stop a test. So one thing I want to, before I'm going to show you a final example, I'll open up to some questions, but I want to make sure that you understand you do have to have traffic to run a split test. If you've got a traffic problem, and you have to have a website, good point, right? We're getting some foundational things down, right? The thing is, if you don't have enough traffic to your site, pause the idea of split testing for now and really concentrate on your acquisition strategy. How are you driving more traffic organically? How are how are your campaigns, your emails, your social media campaigns, how are they driving traffic to your site? How is your paid campaigns doing? How's your PPC doing, right? What are all the different ways you can increase and drive more traffic to your site? So I find in a lot of cases, I work with some larger clients and they don't have traffic problems, but they do have conversion rate problems. But if your case is sort of flipped, or maybe you've got a conversion rate problem and a traffic problem, right? But if you're not getting enough traffic, really pause this idea for now and really think about how you can drive more raw traffic to your site. So here's a couple of examples. So if you have a landing page that converts at 2% and you want to be able to detect a 50% increase through a test, so going from 2 to 3%, if that page only gets 300 visitors a day, it's going to take 3 weeks for one variation to reach statistical validation. Testing 2 variations against the control, it's going to take a month. If the page is only getting 50 visitors a day, it's going to take 4 months and 6 months to run that test, right? It's a long time, right? So, I'm not saying if you've got low traffic levels, you can't do testing, but you are going to be limited. So, we can help you decide whether you're ready for testing or not. Because again, if you're not, you're much better off taking your marketing budget and really allocating it towards really trying to drive your acquisition strategy. Okay. So yeah, this is just some examples. I think we're going to get all copies of this presentation. So yeah, if you don't have enough traffic to your site, how are you driving it? Here are some ideas on how you can drive additional traffic to your site. It's not just all about SEO, right? You want to have a nice portfolio of traffic coming to your site. If 75% of your traffic is coming organically from search engines, I don't think it's healthy. If an algorithm changes and you drop in the rankings, you're in trouble, right? So have a nice portfolio of 4 to 5 traffic sources so that if one of them disappears overnight, you've got the others to act as a buffer. Okay, so I mentioned before your tests may surprise you. So here's an example. This is Brookdale Assisted Living. So they had probably one of the ugliest forms I've ever seen, right? You can't make that more. And look, the buttons at the very bottom, right? Just no pictures, nothing, very generic. So their hypothesis was using video on a landing page will cause more visitors to click the Find a Community button. That was the goal of their test and their hypothesis. So they created 2 different variations, and they're quite nice, really. They moved the call to action higher up on the page. They used bulleted benefit statements. And so these 2 pages are exactly identical. One uses a static image, the other one uses video. That's the only difference between these 2. Okay. So I'm setting you up for the big fall here, right? Everybody thinks video is going to win. And in many cases, when we run tests, video is the clear winner. In this case, both the variations beat the control, that ugly form. Both the variations beat the control. The static image recorded a 3.92% increase in Find a Community searches, and the video variation only recorded a 0.85% increase. So, 4% increase in conversion rate, that's a pretty modest increase. For Brookdale, it meant over $100,000 of extra revenue per month. So it was a massive amount of revenue that they saw just from a simple test like this. And you can see the test was run for 2 months on over 30,000 visitors, right? So this test took a while, but it was worth taking the time to test this because they really got value out of it. Main takeaways, create a foundation for all your testing and marketing efforts by really taking the time, take a step back, define your website objectives, goals, key performance indicators, KPI targets. Use data to make better informed decisions. Use at least one qualitative, one quantitative source of data. Create a list of testing ideas based on that data. Come up with a formal testing document. And it's really a roadmap. It's going to take you. And maybe you only have 3-4 tests on it to start out. But over the course of several months, that could grow to 60, 70 tests you want to perform. So now it becomes important to start prioritizing and documenting everything in a formal testing document. Select your testing platform. I recommend Optimizely. And then measure the results, implement the winners, and rinse and repeat. This is an iterative process. You go to Amazon, anytime you go to Amazon, you don't know it, but they've got 8, 9, 10 experiments running all throughout their website. You have to test a page at a time. So what works for one page on your site isn't necessarily going to work on the other page. So take subjectivity out of this and start thinking about ways to bring a more scientific approach to your marketing efforts. And it all starts with collecting the right amounts of data, analyzing that data, forming a testing document, and then using a platform like Optimizely to continuously improve your site. So your site should be evolving every single month through tests. I've seen it work over and over again. It really, really works. So here's some additional resources for you. When you get a copy of this, you'll be able to click on these links. I've got Optimizely resources. Qualaroo, the exit survey, page-level survey program, has a fabulous blog. I've got, there's 45 posts on multivariate and A/B testing. Avinash Kaushik, if you've heard of him, is a web analytics guru. He's got a fantastic blog that talks about finding actionable insight in your Google Analytics program. Which Test Won is a great site. It shows the original and the variation and lets you vote on which one you think won. And then it shows you the results and explains the testing methodology and why they think the winner did win. And then the Marketing Experiments blog is another fabulous resource as well. So, how can we help? You can do the Lone Ranger method. You can do it all yourself. I mean, Optimizely is a tool that you can use on your own. If you've got some bandwidth in your marketing department, think about how you can start a conversion optimization team within your company. The second method, the buddy system, you work with someone like me, and I can help work with your marketing team to kind of set all these tools up and help analyze the data, help setting up the split tests. That's the way I work with clients like Dale Carnegie. It works best that way. That's the way I prefer to work. The other option is you say, I don't have any bandwidth for this, I just want you guys to do it all. We can do that. It's better if someone from your organization is also a champion of the testing and I work with that person and we work together on it. That's the way it works best. So I would recommend, this middle path. But certainly, if you've got extra marketing people and you want to try to, get your feet wet in this, you can certainly start yourself. There's no problems with you thinking about these ideas and using a platform like Optimizely just to get the ball rolling. Okay, so that's all I had for you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them best I can. And testing is fun too. It really is. I like. You can tell I'm excited about it really because I've seen it work so many times. Yes.
Sarah just have a question on number of visits for a test. So you said that depending on your level of traffic, it might take a little bit longer or shorter to complete the test. Is there a specific number that it has to get to?
Yeah. Okay. So the question was, how many people do you need to run a valid test, right? It really varies. The problem comes in when the conversion rate, like let's say you've got your control and you've got a variation, and the variation's winning, but it's winning by a small amount. So it's going to take a lot longer to reach statistical validity when you've got a small increase in conversion rate that you're trying to measure. If you're trying to measure a larger increase in conversion rate, or you're testing a radically different design, let's say you're testing a completely different homepage design that could have a radical effect on conversion rate, and if it does have a radical effect on conversion rate, for example, going from 2% to 4%, it's going to take much less time because these testing platforms will reach validity when there's a larger difference in conversion rates between the original and the test variation. So it's hard to answer your question. These tools do have calculators where you can put in your parameters and it will estimate the number of days it will take to run a test, right? So if you don't have a lot of traffic to your site, and you want to try testing, my recommendation to you is to test really large things. Don't test button color because you're going to see very small, variations in conversion rate, and it's going to take, 6 months for you to find out, whether the blue button or the orange button worked. And by the way, Google tested 42 variations of the color blue on their homepage. Talk about iterative testing. I mean, they've taken it to the next. I actually met an employee who left because he was so sick of the minutia of testing that Google was doing. But it worked for them. It just takes time. Yes.
You mentioned bounce rates and how just searching, like Google or something, is one way to get your page. What would be some other ways that you can concentrate on besides search?
Besides organic?
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the question is how do you drive, what are other ways to drive sources of traffic to your site? Right. Well, the most popular is SEO. Everybody talks about SEO, will get you the number one on the Google search engine. If you see the search results these days, the natural results keep getting pushed further down the page, right? So, it's still important. I would think about, obviously we want more free organic traffic, right? The concentration should really be on a content strategy. Don't get into the minutia of keywords. That's very difficult to do these days, especially since all the keywords are no longer being provided in your web analytics programs. So, I would say organic traffic, try to get about 35% of your total traffic from organic. Think about trying to get 15% of your traffic from paid sources. Could be pay-per-click, display advertising, retargeting. Referral traffic, building links from third-party sites to your website. Referral traffic, try to get about 15% or so referral traffic. Direct traffic, you really don't have control over direct traffic. That's people who have you bookmarked or they're typing your URL into the browser window. But direct traffic typically is comprised of your customers, people who know you already, right? So direct traffic, a healthy percentage is about 30%. And then campaign traffic. Hopefully you'll have email campaigns that you're running. So your various email programs, your social media programs, your campaigns that you're running that are bringing traffic in. So there's about 4 sources there that I just mentioned. So try to have a nice blend of all of them, because again, if you're relying 80% of your traffic on paid search, I mean, you're renting that traffic. That's not healthy, right? So think about, just like you wouldn't put all your money in a single stock for your retirement, right? You want a nice blend. Same thing with your traffic acquisition strategy. This gentleman had a question, someone here?
You talked about watching people use your site. Does that service travel? We have a lot of customers that come to some big shows. Since they're already corralled.
Yeah.
To pull
Yeah,
them
user,
more so.
yeah, user testing, well, you can use their pool of professional testers, so it's kind of done automatically for you. If you want to recruit your own customers, they do allow that. That's the best way to do it. So the way it works is you get this installed on your site, and a little thing pops up and says, would you be interested in some user testing, doing some user testing for us, and we'll give you a $25 certificate or whatever. Right? And then it collects their phone number and contact information, because you want to call these people first. You got to weed out the crazy people, right? So you call them, you can find out the ones that you think are going to be best for your test, and they can help you run. Usertesting.com will give them the tools to log in and run the test, and then you get the results. So that's the best way to do it.
Let me make sure I give my question answer. So if I'm at one of my events and we have some key customers, we want to see how they use our site.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can run that on your own without using usertesting.com.
No, we want to use them since they know how to do it.
Okay.
But do they travel?
Well, it's an online service, so I think you'd have difficulty trying to set that up live in a setting like that. In a case like that, just come up with 7, 8 tasks you want to watch people do. Get people in a room and give them the sheet, and you kind of watch them as they go through it. It's kind of difficult to do that. The tool is really easy to use. That's the recommended way to do it, using the online tool. I think we're running out of time here, but any last questions? Okay, thank you for your